Welcome to Cards to Yards, brought to you by the Adventure Stadium and the Adventure Begins, located on 1488, right next to a big old movie theater. I'm Chaz Graves, and here with me today, Preston Laird and Mark Blair.
Hey guys, welcome back to Cards to Yards, where we talk all things sports and sports cards. I'm with Preston again. Preston, how's it going this week?
Good. How you doing, Mark?
Once if the Astros bats get going again and the pitching looks like some semblance of pitching, I think I'll be good. As we're recording this, of course, the Astros are down 2-1 in the ALCS, and now I know, now I probably sound to most other fans like what Boston and New York fans have sounded to me for my whole life, where it's just like, oh, the Astros are in their fifth straight ALCS, and we can't get a hit, and we gave up grand slams. Poor babies. It's like we're so spoiled with playoff baseball now. It's ridiculous. But we can, but we can open up the NFL box score page and then be brought right back down to earth. So well. But, the trials and tribulations of being a Houston sports fan, a homer, as it were, and sure is spending because they make me say dough a lot. But you know how it is. Like, every city has, different trials and tribulations of sports. That's why we love it. So let's get back into it, of course.
It could be worse, Mark. We could be Yankee fans. They're not watching their team play right now, so I'll take it.
Very true. But hey, you ended up making a fantastic segue, because guess what? We're going to start out with some Yankees news, or a Yankees legend, and some would probably consider one of the GOATs. That is a Joe DiMaggio. His jersey from the Yankees home opener in 1946 is up for auction. Can you imagine in this market what that's going to go for?
Yeah, personally, I think it's probably going to go for close to a million myself. I know that estimates are around the $200,000 range is what they're expecting to get, but in this case, I think that's a huge underestimated price as far as what I think this piece will go for. I'm thinking it's going to go for anywhere from a 1 to 1.5 million. That's my guess if I'm throwing darts at a dartboard.
Wow. Because Heritage Auctions, they're based out of Dallas, and they have it estimated at, like you said, 200 grand. But I'm hoping whatever happens with this, whoever buys this gets their name in the news or whatever. But this needs to be turned over to the Baseball Hall of Fame, I think, personally.
Yeah.
And because there is a very special significance to this jersey. So a lot of people don't know this because we can't fathom this in this day and age. But Ted Williams and Joe DiMaggio and a lot of other greats, they had to stop for this thing called war. So he was gone for World War II from 42 on, comes back in 46. This is the home opener against the Washington Senators. And he ended up driving in the tying run, and the Yankees end up beating the Senators on that opening day. And then also he signed the tag at a later date. And they have like the photo matches with this kid and all that. So I just phenomenal jersey. What was really funny in reading the article is they went out of their way to say 6 of the 7 buttons are original. It's like, is there someone out there that cares that much about buttons? And I understand like completionist and all that, but I think the buttons would be the last thing I would think about when I'm seeing like a Joe DiMaggio signature on a jersey that he wore, that he contributed to a win coming back from war, not only war, World War II.
Even though it may seem trivial when you're spending a couple $100,000 on a historic piece like that, then the buttons are probably a little more important than if we were looking at a Joe No One MLB autographed jersey. So yeah, buttons are not at the top of my list either. But if I was looking at a piece like that, I would probably want to know what type of stitching, what type of buttons, and all that good stuff, and if it was dirty or clean or whatever it may be. So, but yeah, truly a remarkable piece of Americana sports history and really just a history of the country. I agree with you. It belongs in a museum or the Hall of Fame or something. We'll see what happens.
But I also just want to say to anyone out there, don't run this through the laundry.
No.
If you just have to clean it, I guess dry clean. I would not clean that thing.
No.
Something else I would not clean, and also switching sports from baseball to basketball, but still talking about a goat. Um, there's going to be a pair of sneakers that, at least sports wise, is going to be the most expensive sneakers of all time. They were worn by Michael Jordan in his fifth ever pro game. Now there is a pair that sold before that was from an exhibition early in his career, but this is an actual like on the docket NBA game, his fifth ever game. This is a different auction house. This is Sotheby's, which is of course a high end, high class auction house. The shoes are expected to shatter the previous record, which was $615,000 that was recorded when a pair of MJ worn shoes from '85 was sold last year in 2020. These shoes are expected a little bit more than the DiMaggio estimation at 1 to 1.5 million. Um, Live auction is going to be on October 24th. And of course, fittingly, they put this during lot 23 of that big auction. You have to,
Uh-huh.
right? I mean, you got to put it in
Yeah,
23.
absolutely.
And this has nothing to do with sports, but interestingly enough, I was like, well, wait a minute. How are Jordans not the most expensive shoes? Apparently, there was a private sale where some Kanye West worn prototypes sold for 1.8 million. I'm not putting my opinion out there on that. I'm just gonna say that this Jordan shoe is gonna shatter records, man.
Yeah. Somebody wasted $1.7 million. That's for sure.
And these shoes look nice. Now these were not Air Jordans, of course. This is before his deal, but it
Yep.
was the Nike Airships, which cool name in itself. But
I
yeah,
mean,
so
just the shoes alone, even if Jordan hadn't worn them, would be worth thousands of dollars. So it kind of makes you wonder, when all this stuff is going on back in the day, how many guys were putting aside, game used shoes and imagining, the market 35, 40 years later down the road and what that would encompass, had they, of course, had the foresight, and I'm sure that you see a lot more of them on the market. But, this is something you don't see every day, especially a verified article that was used so early in one of the greatest of all time's career. I mean, you just don't see this kind of thing pop up every day.
absolutely, and this was way before authentication, which is big in MLB. Like they'll take stuff right out the field, put a sticker on it, have like witnesses there, the whole deal. This is not the case, especially obviously not back in the 1940s for Joe DiMaggio.
Yeah.
But even with the, you got a record of the game as far as in Jordan's case, and you have pictures and matching and previous owners and documentation. So you got to assume they're legit and real, but at the same time, there's no authentication that was done back in that time in
Yeah.
'85. So, uh, well, more power to people who have money to buy stuff like that. I think the most expensive thing I have is a Ben Tate signed jersey, which even the biggest Texans fan would have to go, oh yeah, he was the thing. That's fine.
Mark, it's so funny that you say that. Okay, I spent the better part of a year when Ben Tate was a rookie for the Texans collecting his autograph rookies, and I amassed like 60 of his autograph rookies. And
Wow.
yeah, it was quite the reach, unfortunately, when it boiled down to it. But yeah, I was once a huge Ben Tate believer. It's a shame.
Well, it's fun to collect, and it's fun to collect one player as long as it doesn't, break the bank. And I wouldn't have think he probably did break the bank back then either. But it's definitely, it's not like you're trying to chase, like Trevor Lawrence, every Trevor Lawrence autograph jersey card this year or whatever.
Yeah, I
So
got majority of his cards I probably spent, $15, $20 max for. So yeah, it wasn't like
yeah,
a expenditure. But yeah, a lot of potential and just fell short. Well, all
But
right.
hey, we talked more about Ben Tate in the last 2 minutes than probably anyone has in 5 years. But good for him. Hope he's doing well. All
Yeah.
right, and so what a better time, not a better time to transition to NFL. And we're not even going to mention what happened to the Texans this week because usually like I try if there's any way for me to stretch put them in because we're fans of the Texans. We're just hoping for better and brighter things in the future, and we'll leave it at that. But one of their rivals who had before been winless at the bottom of the AFC South with them, or is now tied with them at the bottom, I should say. Trevor Lawrence finally got his first win, but he had to travel all the way across the pond to do it in one of the London exhibition, not exhibition, but one of the London regular season outreach games that they do. They beat the Dolphins 23-20. Dolphins have fallen to 1-5. They've been really struggling without Tua in there. He was back, but he just cannot carry that team. It's hard for one player to carry a football team all by themselves.
Yeah.
Like you even look at Mahomes and Brady and people who you think do that, they're not really doing that. They have coaching and plays and coaching staff. I mean, look at the Cardinals, talent, just talent everywhere. But it's not just one guy. Like it's hard to do that. Jacksonville had a 20 game losing streak going into this game, so good for them. Eat some extra tea and crumpets, and let's keep going because you're still in the bottom of the AFC South with the Texans. I'll say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
They may
Good
not get
for them.
another win all year.
Good for them. Good for the Texans. Let them win another game, hopefully, and so we'll move up on the draft board.
Right. And like I had mentioned, Tua did carry the team. First game back from IR, he was 33 for 47 with 2 touchdowns. Just not enough. Just not enough. Now going from England to a virtual, almost like Tea Party level scandal back here in the States, the Vegas Raiders just what a whirlwind. I don't even remember what day that happened or what the time turnaround was, but and we're not going to get into this too much because we're going to focus on the sports and sports card aspect of it. But
Yeah.
they found themselves without a coach very quickly, like within a matter of hours. John Gruden stepped down based on some emails and some communications that have been had with higher ups. There's other teams going through this right now, or I guess bracing for any kind of fallout from this. But it's best for both parties just for him to step down. So they were without a head coach. So now they have
Yeah.
an interim. But somehow, even with all those distractions and playing their most bitter rival, the Denver Broncos, they won the game. And Derek Carr had his fourth 300-yard passing game. And what's
Yeah.
interesting about that is only one Raiders done better than that in like a 6 game stretch, and that was Rich Gannon the year he won MVP. He had five.
Yeah.
300-yard games within the first 6 games. So
I would have guessed Gannon.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, Gannon, he would
Man,
have,
Gannon
he
had a
just would have
couple
some
of
good
great
numbers.
seasons. I mean, just fantastic seasons back to back.
He really did. I don't think he ever got to household name, but as a football fan, you knew who he was, right? And just good quarterback. But so Carr helped the Raiders improve to 4-2, even with all that going on. They are now tied for first in the division with the Chargers and
Yeah.
Broncos. After starting 3-0, have dropped three straight, and now they're 3-3. So
Yeah, Broncos are a little in disarray right now. I think that they've got a little bit of a talent issue, and they've got a few injuries as well. I think Judy's going to be coming back shortly, or if he hasn't come back already. But yeah, they're a little bit thin. They've had Bridgewater playing hurt for a couple of games now, and I think it shows. As far as the Raiders go, um, if you look back to the week prior when right before Gruden was let go, which was one of the most shocking things I've ever seen in NFL history as far as news goes. But I think that team flat out did not want to win that game prior because they knew what was going on with their head coach. And I think it was a show, it was a display of their displeasure with the direction that the franchise was going in with him. And I think that, as you said, it was something that had to be done. We're not going to get into it, but you you just have to turn the page and hope that they put a nice staff together and help these guys finish a season which still has a lot of promise. And I think that they're going to use this as fuel going forward. And I like the Raiders' chances of making the playoffs this year.
Yeah, and even if he had been fine, upstanding or whatever, like coaches aren't forever. Football teams
No.
are forever unless you get your team put on a Mayflower truck in the
Yep.
middle of the night when no one can see and shipped off to another city. But the Raiders
Everyone's
are there.
replaced.
Yeah, the Raiders are there to stay. You got to replace the coach. What's interesting about that, though, going back to that Jacksonville game, that team could have easily given up on Urban Meyer after he kind of had a public thing. Again, we'll just keep it sports, but surprised that they didn't just lay over for the Dolphins in England and in London. But you have to have pride as a football player. It's a really tough sport, and also you got to think about that paycheck and future paychecks. So you don't really have the luxury of like laying down. It's not like the end of the movie, the Longest Yard, where they're mad at Paul Crewe, played by Burt Reynolds, and they just decide to let him get sacked 9 times in a row. You can't do that and keep a job. So
No,
uh,
and they don't want to hurt their teammates. Yeah,
no. And now on to a team that's really clicking on all levels, and they were without their coach, but it wasn't due to anything other than COVID protocols. That is the Arizona Cardinals, off to an incredible start. We talked about them last time. Now they're 6-0. The LA Rams are right behind them at 5-1. That's a very top-heavy division there. But their offense kept rolling without their coach and offensive mastermind Cliff Kingsbury, who was out due to COVID-19 protocols. They had 30 points for the fifth time this season, and they beat the Browns 37-14. And there's a lot of people out there that would argue that the Browns are the biggest disappointment in the season so far. It's still a young season, but it's not looking good. I mean, the Browns are 3-3 in a very tough AFC North, struggling on all counts, and it's going to be hard to dig out of that hole.
yeah, I agree. It's going to be really tough on those guys. There again, they've had a few injuries pop up that certainly didn't help with Chubb going down and their second string running back, I think, had some issues shortly thereafter. So they're backed in a corner. Yeah, they're in a super tough division, and I don't know as they're going to be able to come out and have a shot at the playoffs. We'll see what happens, but Baltimore looked like they were not much of a team the first couple of games of the season. Now they're looking like world beaters. So
Oh, yeah,
this
absolutely.
game could change just like that. The momentum could change. So we've got a long way to go, especially with a 17-game season. So that extra game is definitely going to give us a little bit more excitement and stretch out that what if scenario a little bit longer in the NFL season than it has been in years past. So it's going to be fun to watch.
Oh, and absolutely. And on the top side of things, speaking of the Cardinals again, I mean, we've seen teams get off to a hot start 6-0 and then end up 500 or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to, and it's a little bit hard to root for them. But I just kind of think of them as the NFC version of the Texans, since they have like J.J. Watt and DeAndre Hopkins, which it's
Yeah.
really hard as a sports fan to know we got no value for those guys. But speaking of J.J. Watt, it used to be people would say, "Oh, did you know T.J. Watt's the brother of J.J. Watt?" Well, the way T.J. Watt played on Sunday night, now it's he's going to be the Watt brother, and they're going to go, "Oh yeah, T.J. Watt, he has a brother, J.J. Watt, if you ever heard of him."
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! So the Steelers and Seahawks, they were in a wild one. Steelers ended up winning 23-20 in overtime, but in overtime alone, T.J. Watt had 2 sacks, including a forced turnover, which I believe is his 18th, and he's led the league in that category. Like that's the most since he's come into the league. So he's just like he's living up to that 12 million a year contract, being one of the higher paid defensive players in the league.
Yeah.
And
He's
on
everywhere,
the
man.
he's
Everywhere.
I mean his brother had a motor, he's got a motor. Like I remember like D'Amico Ryans was always a guy on the Texans, so I just admired because he just ran nonstop all over the field, back and forth.
He
And
was
then
Bill General. He
oh,
held it all together.
absolutely. And he just never quit. Now on the Seahawks side of things, they're without Russell Wilson. who's injured currently. Geno Smith, of all people, came out, of nowhere. He's like, I've got a few serial numbered cards in long boxes somewhere because he was like a top pick that I thought I'd never see again. He played pretty well,
Yeah.
but no one's a substitute for Russell Wilson, of course. Definitely not
No.
Geno Smith, and they lost 23-20 to the Steelers in overtime. So, be
That's great.
interesting
It
to
was a
see.
great game, man.
Yeah, and Seattle is like they're competitive, but they're just not. They need Russell Wilson back. I mean,
Yes, they
there's
do.
just no other way to split it.
But
So
but Gino surprised me a little bit. I didn't think he would be as good as he's been, and considering he's going to have to be in there for several more weeks. I think that's good for the Seahawks. Give him time to develop some chemistry with the receivers and such, and get some more practice under his belt. I think he'll be all right.
absolutely, but it kind of goes back to the other teams we're talking about. Like you just can't afford to fall too far behind in the NFL. Even with a 17 game season now, it's tough. It's tough to dig your way
Yep.
back in that sport. Well, going from the gridiron to the diamond, baseball's Final Four. Not quite March Madness, but October Mayhem or whatever you want to call it. In the NL is the Dodgers and the Braves. And the Dodgers actually dropped the first two in Atlanta. And the Dodgers, who had won over 100 games, survived the wild card game and the ALDS against the Giants. They now find themselves on the brink of elimination against a surprising Atlanta team. Um, and as we're recording this, of course, like you said in football, anything can happen in baseball. So we don't know who's going to win either of these matchups and wind up in the World Series. But once they get to the World Series, we'll definitely do a further breakdown and really talk about this because that's when everyone who hasn't been watching baseball the whole year watches. I mean, everyone watches the World Series. But as it stands now, if you had to pick a few players off the Dodgers or the Braves to invest in or collect that you thought had either some upside or just long term hold potential, who would that be? Like starting with the Dodgers, what's a player from the Dodgers that you would collect
Uh,
right now?
as far as the Dodgers go, it's hard to bet against Betts. You don't bet against Betts, man. Mookie Betts is one of the great players in the game today. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. Um, Fantastic as far as the offensive end, defensive end. He's one of the greatest defensive players of all time. And I'm not just saying, one of the 20, 30, 40. No, he's one of the top 5 defensive players of all time. The stats back it up. There's all types of records that he's going to wind up setting before it's all said and done. Gold gloves. He's not as flashy on the offensive side as he is known for his defense, but it's a combination of both that makes him just so great. Reminds me a lot of Carlos Correa and what he brings to the game. Different position, of course, but that rare combination of phenomenal offensive prowess and absolute best defense in the game. As far as pitchers go, Max Scherzer is as hot as it gets for pitchers right now. I think both of those guys are solid investments. Cody Bellinger, I might throw a flyer on, but I wouldn't go too crazy with him. He's a extremely streaky player. Yeah, he's had some great playoff games, but this year, I mean, his season was absolutely horrendous. He hovered, around the 200 batting range for most of the season. So the fact that he's producing in the playoffs isn't a huge shock. It's a little bit of a surprise, but yeah, that's what I would do. And as far as the Braves, I like the young kid Pache that's coming up. Of course, Ronald Acuna Jr. is phenomenal. He's going to be here for the next decade, so get used to it. And once he comes back from this injury, I think it's going to be full speed ahead for this guy. And I don't see his card slowing down anytime soon. So I think Ronald Acuna Jr. is still a solid investment as far as the card market goes. Freddie Freeman's a good player, has been a good player for many, many seasons. There again, I think he's a little bit streaky later in his career, not as consistent. So, in my opinion, Ronald Acuna Jr. is by far the best Atlanta guy to invest in.
And that's who I was thinking too. And it's funny because it's like, well, Mark, he's injured most of the season. Like, yes, but I just think that one way to look at it is the Braves can do this well without him. I mean, oh my goodness, like when he comes back, and he will come back, a young guy,
Mhm.
been healthy before this, just a freak injury trying to hustle after a ball, and just game changer. Like if he stays in
Yeah,
Atlanta and does that, so I think him. Some guy, a guy who's like popping right now, but may not have the long term is Jock Peterson. 3 home
yeah,
runs through Atlanta's first 6 playoff games. I mean, we've talked about this before. If someone hits a home run in a playoff game, their cards go up 100%. Now, if it was $1 and it goes up to $2, okay. But I mean,
right.
hey, if you're a gambler, you can make flip in a couple of days and make some money, sure. But
Sure.
yeah, like you said, I agree. Long term potential bets and Acuna out of that series. And unfortunately, there's one other series left. I'm sorry, we got to talk about it. We'll make it quick, but it's
I just ended the game. I saw.
it was the Astros and the Red Sox. I was feeling pretty good after game one.
Yeah,
I know that the Red Sox are like us, is that they can score 10 runs a game, and they have just a really solid lineup and a power hitting lineup. But then game two happened, and I'll tell you this, Preston. I've eaten at Denny's a lot, so I'm used to indigestion from grand slams. But I never had indigestion like I did after the first 2 innings of game two, where the Red Sox hit 2 grand slams. I mean, ridiculous.
you and me both, man. Pass the Tums. I need a bottle full. Yeah, that was absolutely horrendous. They showed a little bit of character fighting back in that game and scoring 5 runs, and they were down 9-0 and went up 9-5. I thought that would give them a little bit of momentum going into the next game, but what did we see? We had another grand slam in
Another
the
one.
second game. I mean, are you kidding me? But
Yeah.
I mean, you got to respect the game. That Boston's got some fantastic players, and as well as the Astros. So there's some good guys to invest in as far as Boston goes. Rafael Devers is tearing it up. Kiki Hernandez, Kiki is molten lava, on fire, kind of hot, kind of just makes you sick to your stomach hot if
Yeah.
you're not a Boston Red Sox fan. But you can't deny his ability and his skill. Uh, so yeah, his stuff is skyrocketing right now. And then JD Martinez, a guy that the Astros actually just let go for absolutely nothing and waived him 8 years ago. I remember when they waived him, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" This guy was a like a top 10 prospect in all of MLB baseball at one time, and the Astros just flat up gave up on this dude. And the very next year, he's hitting 300 and has been in the league ever since, and a perennial all-star. So yeah, that was a huge oversight on the Astros part. So yeah, I think that of all the Red Sox, Kiki Hernandez is probably your hottest card market guy right now. And then as far as the Astros go, I mean they're loaded top to bottom. Altuve is a surefire Hall of Famer. He tied Derek Jeter for what is it, fifth all time in the postseason, or
Actually, third all time. The only players in
third.
front of Altuve. Altuve's got 20. Bernie Williams had 22, and then Manny Ramirez has 29.
Okay. All right. So he's tied for third. Yeah.
Yeah.
And dude, it's just nails. I mean, what a hitter. That's all he does is hit. Fantastic defense. Altuve is a fantastic investment. I think his stuff's way undervalued, as all of the Astros players are undervalued. And Kyle Tucker, my number one guy, he's no longer a secret. Okay. People finally realizing how good this guy is. I don't know what else you can do. You were telling me last week, like, and I knew that he had the best, batting average from May on, and it's hard to deny the talent and the skill level and what he's producing in the game, and his cards are showing that now. They've probably gone up, I'd say 50% in the last 3 weeks. Maybe a little bit more across the board. Now, some of his higher end stuff has probably gone up closer to, I'd say, 200% on some of
Oh,
it. So,
absolutely.
so his stuff's definitely going up. And then Jordan, what can you say about Jordan? And and you got to take Carlos Correa. Okay, look, Carlos Correa may not be an Astro next year. There's a good chance that he's not. I still think that there's a good chance that he is. Either way, if you're a card investor or a collector, buy Carlos Correa stuff, okay? Because if he goes to another team, it's only going to increase his value, and I know that. You could right now you could invest $10,000 in Carlos Correa and turn around, no matter what team he goes to next year, turn around probably double your money. So now, not a guarantee, but that's just my opinion. I just Carlos Correa is probably one of the most undervalued stars in all of sports, not just baseball.
And I would have put Bregman on the list too. I just think people hate the Astros. So like
Yeah.
the younger guys, Tucker and Alvarez, they weren't really around for the scandal. And I think that because they're young, they're going to be around at a time where most people have like let it go a little bit. But I'll tell you what.
Bregman's got MVP potential. I mean, heck, he almost won MVP 2 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll keep an eye on that series, of course. But I will say that I don't want to see another Grand Slam. If I crave a Grand Slam from Denny's, I'll just go get a Rudy Tooty Fresh and Fruity from IHOP. I'm over that. But all right. So another team with hope in Houston is the Rockets. They start the season on Wednesday. NBA season kicks off Tuesday night. The Nets. We talked about the football like crazy news or whatever. Well, the crazy news in basketball was Kyrie Irving was not going to play home games for the Nets because of the vaccine policy, and Nash like vocally said about it, yeah, he'll just not play home games. And I was like, your point guard's automatically going to sit out of 41 games. And then kind of 2 days later, it was like, oh, he's just not going to play. So that's again on the sports. We'll stick to the sports and sports cards end of it, but really unfortunate because this guy, of course, he was paired up with LeBron, won a championship for the Cavs, but then you have like the big three in Brooklyn, and people definitely, especially in the hobby, have strong opinions about Harden and Durant. But now it's up to Harden and Durant. And it'll be interesting to see what they do without Kyrie Irving there. I mean, he was injured most of last year anyway. But just a weird kind of like shake up. He's obviously like had this huge spotlight on him for it, and he was one of the biggest stars in the NBA. So kind of big
The
deal.
most overrated team in the NBA is the Brooklyn Nets.
Well, it might shine now. That might show finally.
KD and Harden are both old. They're just a shell of themselves, especially Harden, as far as I'm concerned. I think KD's got a little bit left in the tank, but when you got an Achilles injury, you're never the same. And when you're in your mid-30s, you're really never going to be the same. He'll have flashes here and there where he might look like his old self for a couple of games, but to sustain that over an entirety of a long NBA 80-game season, I just don't see it. I see injuries in the future for both of these guys because they're probably going to feel like they need to put a little bit more load on their shoulders, and as a result, I think it's gonna show in their injuries. So we'll see what happens. Is my heart broken? No, it's not. Kyrie is as the world turns every day with this dude. It's always something. The fact that he's missing the entire season over this is bizarre. It's just absolutely bizarre. But that's his MO is bizarre. It's bizarre behavior, bizarre opinions, bizarre outlooks on things. That's just the way he carries himself, and he's gonna his pocketbook's gonna suffer as a result, and is also his team is suffering. So kind of hard to root for a guy like that.
And that you can go read the articles and listen to the interviews, and he does believe he's given people a voice. But at the end of the day, it's like you can't be the point guard and not play. I mean, and you can't come in every other game or whatever. And look, the Eastern Conference is really competitive, and there's like teams. You have like really good teams that play well. You have Miami and Boston, and not to mention, I mean, last but not least, the Hawks and the Bucks, who are the reigning champions. So yeah, I just it was just a bizarre, weird thing, and anyone that was investing in his rookie cards, it's like, well, I guess stuff like that happens and it affects the market, and that's why we talk about it.
I haven't checked his values lately, but I'm sure they've plummeted in the last few months.
Well, last few days probably. If they hadn't dropped far enough already. So just
Yeah.
real quickly, what I'm going to do, Preston, I'm going to give you my top 5 players to watch as the NBA
All right.
season unfolds, and then when I'm done with that, you can just tell me if I botched it. Anyone that you would put in the top 5 instead, or just swap them out, or if you agree. So. I'll just go through this really quickly and just a short sentence about why.
Yeah.
Steph Curry, and my sentence could have been, oh, he's Steph Curry, but I just think after a couple of rough injury-plagued seasons, look for the Warriors to be right back in the mix. Of course, it depends on his cohorts like Clay Thompson, but Steph Curry. I don't. It's a safe. I think he's a safe bet for years to come to invest in.
Yeah.
Giannis Antetokounmpo. He is the reigning MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. Can he prove that the Bucks season was not a fluke? That remains to be told. But is he going to prove that he's good? Yeah. And then now this one, the next player is Zion. And look, I'm saying this because he made such a big impact 2 years ago, but so far, the reason I have him in the top 5 is because if he can ever not be injured, I mean, there's no limit to what this guy can do. I just, can he actually play a full season, or is he once again going to be sidelined by all those frustrating injuries? So it's really more of a, rather than, hey, these are the 5 guys, go bye, bye, bye. No, it's like these are the 5 guys where if they do well, sky's the limit. All right, and number 4 on my list of 5 players to watch as the NBA season unfolds is Donovan Mitchell. And the guy just carries that team in the playoffs. Look, the West can be top heavy at times. I still think the Jazz, as long as he's healthy, you're going to be in the mix, like in that 4 or 5 seed. And that's really just a good spot to excel in the playoffs. But from a season long standpoint, I mean, this guy, he just looks like he's going to be an MVP. I just really think Donovan Mitchell is really a fun player to watch. Just leaves it all
Yes.
on the court and just like really the heart of that Jazz team. And then finally, Trey Young. I mean, there's almost no more exciting shooter to watch right now. I mean, just one of the best shooters in the league. Can he keep Atlanta in the hunt for a championship? Or will he have to finally, move on if he can't push them over uh, into that, NBA Finals realm? But it's man, he's fun to watch. So that's my list. So what do you think of
Yeah.
that?
I love your list. Really, I don't disagree with anything that you've got on there. I would throw in LeBron as in a top 5 on my list. That's the only thing I would probably change. And maybe there's just a lot of intrigue around LeBron right now, in my opinion, regarding his usage, his health, where he's really truly at in his game at this point in his career. I do believe that he's on the extreme downslope. Uh, when it comes, it doesn't just gradually come. It hits you. You hit a wall, and there's a visible difference in your game versus the prior seasons. And I think we saw a little bit of that last year, and I think that we're going to continue to see that. And what impact it's going to have overall in his cards, I don't think it's going to be tremendous. Maybe a little stagnant perhaps, but long term, I still, of course, think LeBron's a fantastic investment. And Donovan Mitchell, man, I'm on the same page with you. I think Donovan Mitchell is one of the most underrated superstars in the NBA. Make no mistake, he is a superstar, and he's the oil that keeps that engine running in Utah. He's got some fantastic complementary pieces. Rudy Gobert. The two of those guys together. Hopefully, they can maintain that relationship for years to come. But yeah, I agree. I think Donovan Mitchell's a blast to watch. Utah's a fun team to watch, and the NBA is more fun when Utah is good. And Trey
Yeah.
Young, fantastic dude. Trey Young is pure 1,000% adrenaline, excitement, nonstop. And yeah, I can watch Trey Young all day, every day.
Utah was my favorite team to hate in the '90s, at least the late
Oh
'90s. I
gosh,
mean, it was
are you kidding me?
the Rockets Jazz series were just ridiculous, and you got
That's a
Hornacek and
birthright.
Stockton. Yeah,
Yeah, as a Houston Rockets fan, that's a birthright to hate, Utah. That's just the way it is. Yeah, there was no one got under your skin like the mailman and that snooty John Stockton. Oh gosh, they're so doggone good though. Such a good team. Mailman, I mean, he lived at the free throw line, and other than Jordan, never seen someone get more calls in the NBA than the mailman, Karl Malone, who likes to drive big rig trucks now.
Oh, I wish they would have had all the flopping rules back then.
Oh,
Like,
geez.
yeah, when the Rockets played the Jazz like every year in the playoffs. I really like your take on LeBron. I didn't put LeBron on my list because no matter what he does, he's still LeBron, right? But now
Yeah.
you have this like you practically have Space Jam going over the Lakers, where they just pick like the greatest stars of the universe to try to keep putting talent by him. One of those guys who made my honorable mention list is Russell Westbrook. I don't really see him as a big hobby guy as far as like personality wise or whatever. If his cards haven't taken off to that level yet, I
Yeah.
guess he would. But then again, triple doubles in LA are more valuable than triple doubles in Oklahoma City, if that makes sense.
Or
So,
Dallas. Yeah. Or Dallas or Memphis. Yeah.
right.
Absolutely.
So,
And going back to LeBron, I think when he ends his career, he's going to end it after he's played with his son. And can you
oh,
imagine? Can you imagine when LeBron's son comes into the NBA? You think that you've seen hype? No one's ever seen hype like the hype that's going to be surrounding this kid. I mean, it's going to be like finding a bar of gold if you pull some of his cards. I can't even imagine how insane it's going to be.
oh, especially if they play together, they pull like a Ken Griffey Senior and Junior
Yes, are
moment.
you
Oh my
kidding me? A
goodness.
dual autograph. Oh yeah, those are going to be out there.
Oh yeah.
That's going to
I
be
didn't.
the lottery card right there.
That is going to be crazy. And then of course, like other honorable mentions, John Morant and Luka Doncic, just because I think they're transformative players. But
Absolutely.
it'll be a fun season, and we'll see what happens because
Yeah,
it's just
I
like
think
any other
Ja's going to
sport.
be. Yeah.
I think John Morant's going to be like that. Every 9 year, like maybe they should have picked this guy at number one instead of number two. Now that would be at the expense of Zion, which may or may not happen, but.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you want to talk about card releases because we'll go from the yards part to the cards part. So I'm
Uh-huh.
gonna let you talk about exciting stuff coming out in the next week or so.
Yeah. So this week we've got several new releases coming out. We've got Topps 5-Star Baseball. That's going to be released tomorrow on the 20th of October, if you're watching later. So that's going to be Wednesday the 20th. We've also got Panini National Treasures Collegiate Hobby coming out. That's a fantastic product. That's going to be out tomorrow as well, the 20th, Wednesday. And then you've got Mosaic Baseball, which I'm super excited about. That's going to be coming out also tomorrow. And just love the Mosaic product. And this is the first time that we've got Mosaic Baseball. So even though it's not a licensed product, I think it's going to do really well. It's going to be super popular. Come and get your box of that stuff because I'm sure going to be busting me a box. And you've got 3 autograph cards, 2 Mosaic red parallels, and 5 silver prisms in the Mosaic. So it's a loaded product. It's going to be super fun to open. I can only imagine that it's going to have some really nice case hits and things to chase as well. And then we have, we've got another round of Optic Baseball. It's Optic Choice Baseball. You've got some disco prisms and things of that nature included in that product. That'll be new this week. Now, if you're really, really well off financially and you're a big guy in the sports world, then you're going to want to get the Bowman Transcendent Collection Baseball Hobby Box. This stuff is the rarest product put out there as far as baseball goes. They made 100 total cases. A case is really a box. So really, there's 100 boxes of this product out there. Every box is going to include 2 1-of-1 cards, including a top-tier rookie, and for the small price of only around $18,000, you can have one of those. To be
And that
exact.
comes in like a briefcase, right? Or like
Yes.
a metal case, and
Yes.
because and it's always that expensive regardless of the sport, because I think they have a wrestling one and they have an
Mhm.
MLB one, and like it's such a ridiculous set or notion. But hey, if you got the play money, go for it.
And basically, every card in the set's numbered to 50 uh, or less, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. You get a Wander Franco or a Alec Baum 1-of-1 New Year's autograph card in those cases. So, yeah, it's quite the product.
I'll
Nothing that
take the
I'll.
Wander Franco if I can choose.
Yeah, sign me up for the Wander. Absolutely, that's probably worth the price of admission right there. And let's see, what else do we have coming out? I think that's going to be about it. Oh, we do have Onyx vintage basketball. We had talked about that a few weeks ago. I think they put
Oh,
that, yeah, they put that off a few weeks, and it's supposed to come out tomorrow as well. So that's going to be a cool product with some of the new players coming in. And you know what? We didn't mention Jalen Green. Okay, as a Houston Rockets fan and native Houstonians, we should be ashamed of ourselves.
I didn't want to
Definitely
jinx it.
we're going to be keeping our eyes glued to Jalen Green in Houston this year.
Oh,
He's going to
I
be.
am, and I'm gonna try to find some way to purchase his cards at affordable prices, but we'll see. I mean, like we'll just see. Like I definitely would like to do that. I think with some of the stuff like Chronicles, I can get some base cards for a decent amount. But like I know that back to the auction stuff at the beginning of the show, they're actually auctioning off Cade Cunningham's first ever game worn jersey. So it's like rookie hype is real. NBA is like you have so many collectors coming in that weren't collectors before, and they got to have PSA 10 Kobe Chrome rookie cards and stuff, and they're going to be all over this rookie class. So
Yes,
it's
sir.
like, but mostly as a Houston fan, I just didn't want to jinx it.
The
we,
Rockets went from like the least desirable team to getting breaks to the most desirable team to getting breaks in a matter of a year. So it's super exciting. Four first round draft picks. It's going to be crazy.
oh yeah, that's a
So
lot of RPAs. That's a good odds on RPAs and stuff.
right, you got that right. And one more new release this week that's kind of cool that you don't see a lot of is it's the Donruss Football Factory set.
Ooh.
Really cool. Comes with 5 rated rookie hollows, 400 card set. Um, I don't think they make a tremendous amount of these. I'm not sure what the print run is on them, but you don't see a whole lot of these around. So if you're a big football fan and you like sets, come in and grab one of those because that's going to be nice with the hollows. You could get something in there that's worth way more than the price of a set.
And I will say that the perfect candidate for our closed glossary term of the week is factory set.
Yeah.
So our term of the week, presented by Adventure Begins and Adventure Stadium here on Cards to Yards, is factory set. And this was made popular in the 80s. These are complete sets of cards that companies put out to allow collectors to purchase a complete set of cards without chasing all those cards in packs. The current trend is to also add random photo variations or parallels to increase collectability. So typically, Topps has done a really good job of having all these different chasers in there, and even like entire sets that are serial numbered a different color. So you do have collectors grabbing these off shelves as well, but a great, and I mean fantastic, affordable gift for a young collector. You get all the players. You'll get your Mike Trouts, and you'll get your Tom Brady's. That
Yep.
Donruss set sounds fantastic. So that's it. In case anyone was wondering, now you know what a factory set is. It's a set from the factory, not to be confused with boxes and packs from a factory. So
That's right.
it's the little knowing the little things in this hobby can get you a long way. Well, thanks, Preston. That concludes another Cards to Yards, and we'll be back next time with all things sports and sports cards.
Thanks, Mark.
On behalf of myself, Preston and Mark, thanks for watching Cards and Yards, brought to you by the Adventure Stadium and the Adventure Begins Comics and Games, located on 1488 next to a big old movie theater. We'll see you guys next time.